Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Hope we had a wonderful first half of the week, and we've got a pretty active pattern setting up here for the rest of the week. We already have a lot of rain falling for a lot of folks. We've got near ice storm criteria conditions on the way throughout the next 24 to 48 hours, and all of that could get rounded up with the chance of a bit of a northeast snowstorm going into later this weekend and into early next week. So I know we've been hearing a lot about this big warm up. That is also definitely occurring, but within this overall pattern that are bringing those warmer temperatures, we have more active kind of segments of it that are a little more, I guess, exciting, if you will, than just it's nice and warm outside. So I don't want you to let your guard down because, again, it might not be quite as wintry out there, but that doesn't mean it's not dangerous, especially for some folks who are getting some big time flooding and even some severe weather here throughout the rest of this week. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. Again, we're trying to get to 10,000, and a lot of you are people who return every day but are not subscribed. So if that's you, definitely consider subscribing. Just make it easy on yourself, hit the button, and hit the bell so you'll always be up to date with the latest updates that I post here on YouTube. And anytime I post anything else, you'll get informed with a little buzz on your phone. Also, like the video if you like it, and comment, let me know where you're watching from and what you're seeing out there, and also let me know if you're a fan of the warm-up or if you're kind of missing the wintry side of things. Personally, I am definitely a fan of this warm-up. It is nice to walk around campus and it be 60 instead of 20, but I will say I also would not be mad to see a nice snowstorm for those of us in the southeast that have yet to see any, and hopefully we can reel that in here going into February, but unfortunately this week, and probably really next week as well, it's just not the time for us. Now with that said, let's go ahead and jump on into it because, again, there is a lot to discuss here, and as we look at satellite, you can see it pretty well. Look at this big cluster of thunderstorms down here into the south central part of the country, from Texas through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, even up through Memphis, and portions of eastern Oklahoma getting in on the action today. And we also have a big storm system off the coast of the Pacific just continuing to lash the coast here with rounds of precipitation, and also helping to funnel in this just train of moisture into the country. And that, as it is entering this trough that is over the desert southwest and ejecting out of it, we've got a huge area of divergence here and plenty of moisture to fuel it. And that's why we're seeing these rounds of storms this week through much of the country here east of the Mississippi, and really just east of the Great Basin there in the central part of the country. Alrighty, now taking a look at radar and watches and warnings. Again, we do have a good bit going on, so we'll start kind of in the northeast and work our way westbound here. You'll notice up here we do have a plethora of winter weather advisories, and we also have some kind of scattered rain and snow showers out there right now. Now, these winter weather advisories are for what is currently happening, but also we're going to get another round of precipitation in this part of the country later on, and I'll show that here in a moment in depth, and that could bring some big-time icing impacts. I'm definitely growing concerned about that for some folks up here. I'll talk about exactly what communities and exactly how much ice we're talking about later on. Now, moving south and east a little bit here, we've got a whole lot of rain for a whole lot of people. It's coming down good through Louisville, Cincinnati, Columbus, Ohio, much of Kentucky, Indiana, even through Illinois, seeing some rain this afternoon. But where the big time rain is back down here into Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas, where we have got just this train of precipitation, and I've been talking about it for a while. Places in here could see more than half a foot of rainfall this week, and that's already starting to unfold pretty easily here. You'll see it on radar how heavy it is, and whenever we looked at satellite imagery, you also saw how tall these cloud tops were getting, also just indicating that there's plenty of precipitation left to squeeze out here. Now, another thing I will also mention in this part of the country, if I turn off the radar here, is we've got a plethora of flash flood warnings here. All these red boxes you see down here from San Antonio up through the kind of swamps of Louisiana there, out of Baton Rouge and through Jackson. These are all flash flood warnings. Again, that flooding is a concern. So if you're in a red box, obviously, flooding likely ongoing either where you're at or in your general area. So if you live in a flood-prone area, you gotta have a way to get those watches and warnings. And if you're not in a red box, but you're in one of these green boxes, get ready, because you could get upgraded to a red box at any moment. So again, just kind of be on the lookout here for that. Now, in the central part of the country, all of these kind of exciting gray boxes are just some dense fog advisories. Again, this pattern pretty conducive for fog, and hopefully that fog will burn off throughout the day, and depending on when you're watching this, it could already be gone. Now, West Coast, in the purple boxes here, those are winter weather advisories, and in our kind of fancy blue boxes up here, those are freezing fog advisories. So again, kind of interesting stuff ongoing out here. And looking at radar, a little bit of a lull in portions of the West, specifically the Rockies, but back towards California, Washington, and Oregon, we've got a whole lot of precipitation still working on in. And that segues us pretty good into the next part of the video, where we can go ahead and dive in and discuss about the next 48 hours or so here out west, and give you a quick update on kind of the next 48 hours, like I just said. So again, this afternoon, a lot of what we're seeing this morning, we're going to have rounds of rain and snow here working on in. Snow for higher elevations, rain for lower elevations and into the valleys. That continues, becomes a little more scattered in nature, I think, this afternoon and evening. And same for overnight tonight. You'll notice the precipitation is definitely more scattered than maybe we're seeing right now. And by the time we're waking up Thursday, again, I think a little bit of a lull. This is going into Thursday afternoon. We definitely have pockets of enhanced weather here, especially over Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, Nevada, seeing some good mountain snow and a little bit more energy pushed ashore here through Oregon and Washington. But down through California, again, some nicer conditions, I think, tomorrow compared to what we have seen the past couple of days. Now that will change going into Friday. This is Friday morning. Another storm system moves ashore here, and we're getting another round of rainfall here through Northern California, Oregon, and Washington through much of our day Friday. Now this is as far out as this model goes, but we'll go a little more in depth on that next storm system here later on in the video. Rainfall is definitely going to be on the way as well. Not a complete washout, and most of the rain that falls, again, will be through Northern California, Oregon, and Washington, where we could see a couple of inches. But that won't be, anything that is too out of the normal for this time of year in this part of the country. Now, snowfall-wise, again, a lot of it, especially for the higher elevations. Again, this is going to be very elevation-driven, but our big winners, I think, are going to be up here into the Cascades, down into the mountains of Oregon. Lesser totals in the Sierra Nevadas and into the other mountains out through Nevada, Utah, and Idaho, but still snow nonetheless. Alrighty, next up we're going to talk about the Northeast, where again that icing concern is definitely one we're watching. And quickly before we do that, I'm going to take a sip of water. Alright, sorry, I'm a little parched this morning. I was at a basketball game last night and a lot of screaming was ongoing, so still recovering a little in the voice, but it'll be okay. So as I was talking about Northeast, again a place I'm concerned about ice. It's definitely going to be a setup that isn't conducive for snow, unfortunately, for a lot of folks, I guess is what I'm trying to say, as we have a lot of warm air. As, we've noticed the past couple of days, all of this rain moving northward, all of this wind energy out of the south is definitely funneling that warm air. And unfortunately, the way warm air kind of works in the atmosphere is it's a lot easier to funnel into the upper parts of the atmosphere than kind of at the surface. And that is exactly what's going to happen here going into this afternoon. You'll notice we've got plenty of warm air funneling in and up and over this cold air. That's going to cause rising motion, and we're going to get this shield of precipitation. But cold air is very dense, and it doesn't like to budge all that much. And considering how cold it's been for the past week or so, we still got temperatures below freezing here for a big section of Ontario and up into upstate New York and even sections of Vermont and New Hampshire. And as this shield of precipitation overrides that, we're going to have really an all-out ice storm, I think, for some folks going into this evening, especially here kind of up into the Canadian-U.S. border and then into sections of Ontario and Quebec here. Again, very concerned about the icing potential here showing up in that pink on your map, and we could see more of that as well here into Vermont and New Hampshire. Could definitely see some ice out of this system overnight tonight. And going throughout the overnight hours, that continues. Now, if you happen to be watching up into Maine, central Maine here, we could have enough cold air in the atmosphere here through all layers that it's more of just a snow event. But for most folks, this is going to be a very icy event. And whenever we take a look at these ice totals in a second, you'll notice definitely not anything to kind of just brush off. Now, going later on into tonight, into the early morning hours of tomorrow, luckily that ice kind of starts moving out of the area, and by the time we're waking up, this is 8 a.m., most of that precipitation has worked on out of here outside of just some rain to the south there through Boston, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and southern sections of New York, and then into New Jersey and Pennsylvania. But we'll talk more about the rain itself in a second. I just wanted to kind of touch on the ice on this part of the video. All right, now snowfall totals, again, nothing off the charts here, but it definitely could snow here into Maine, as I mentioned. Maybe a quick couple of inches, 1 to 3 inches, I think is a pretty safe bet, especially into central Maine. I think this kind of circled area on your map has the best shot at seeing that accumulating snowfall, but anywhere you see it on the map here could definitely see snow nonetheless. Again, though, as I said, the bigger concern will be ice, and you'll notice we've got some big areas on the map, especially this corridor here, again, of extreme upstate New York, and unfortunately this map doesn't show Canadian ice as well, but just know totals will be similar in here. About 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch of ice in that circled area on your map is going to be very possible here, as again, we're going to have prolonged periods of icing. Now, up here into Vermont, New Hampshire, and into Maine, I think 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch of ice is a more likely scenario, which is still enough to cause problems. Anytime you hit a 1/10 of an inch of ice, that's enough to cause big-time travel concerns. Once you hit 1/4 of an inch, that's basically impossible travel and widespread power outages. So, isolated spots in here, you'll notice about 1/4 of an inch showing up here into sections of central New Hampshire. Anybody that gets that much ice is definitely going to be in for a pretty tough 12 hours or so here. The good news, though, is, again, going into tomorrow, that warm air comes northward pretty quickly, and we should melt a lot of the ice that falls, but it's still going to be a pretty treacherous kind of set of 12 to 24 hours here for a lot of folks. Alrighty, now severe weather also going to be a concern here with this setup, starting as early as today. In fact, we have a slight risk of severe weather in the Baton Rouge and New Orleans area, with that marginal risk spreading outwards towards Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Jackson, Biloxi, and Mobile, also under the gun for severe weather today. And again, this kind of general storm system here is pulling up a lot of warm air out of the Gulf. So instability is going to be something that definitely could creep in here. I know obviously we have a big shield of rain, so it's not going to be kind of the sunshine type of instability, but it could definitely be the warm air advection type of instability, just meaning a lot of moisture and humidity and kind of thunderstorm fuel is getting pulled out of the Gulf here. And because of that, we could see some strong straight line winds and even a couple isolated tornadoes not out of the question here. And that threat continues tomorrow, shifts eastbound a little bit once again, including Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Biloxi, Mobile, and the western Florida panhandle here getting under the gun as well. And as far north as Jackson and Montgomery could see some strong storms tomorrow as well. So again, same threats. Strong straight line winds will be the biggest threat, but a couple isolated tornadoes not going to be out of the question here for these communities. All right, let's talk about this big old shield of rain for everyone else in the east. We talked about the snow and ice a little bit, but obviously that's not going to be the only impacts we see out of this storm system. So going into this afternoon, again, most of the heavy rain that's falling and the severe storms are going to be located down here near the coast, from Texas through Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. But it's still going to be rainy north of there, through the Tennessee River Valley, Nashville getting in on some rain, Louisville, up through Columbus, Ohio, Cincinnati, back through Detroit, seeing some rain showers this afternoon. And going into this evening, that continues. And you'll notice going into about 8, 9, 10 o'clock tonight, we've got a nice shield of light to moderate rainfall through the northeast and mid-Atlantic, while to the south of there, again, rainfall a little bit more intense, and that severe weather threat a little bit higher here. Again, through Louisiana, Mississippi, and into Alabama overnight tonight. And you'll notice we've got a kind of feisty squall line here setting up shop, and that's also where we're likely to see big-time flooding concerns. So we're going to have to watch out for that as well, where you're seeing those higher returns on radar here overnight tonight. Now, continuing through the overnight hours, all of that rain slowly continues, and by the time we're waking up tomorrow, a little bit drier in the northeast. That first batch of rain moves out, but you'll notice another batch of rain now moving in, likely to bring rain through the Appalachia chain from North Carolina northward into the Virginias, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and into the Ohio and Tennessee River Valley. But behind it, another round of storms and another storm complex developing here Thursday morning. And by the time we get to Thursday afternoon, we're going to do it all over again. Now, I think overall Thursday will be a little bit more scattered in nature with the rainfall. You'll notice not as widespread as today, but still expect some scattered showers through the mid-Atlantic, the northeast, down into the Carolinas. Could see some scattered showers and storms. But the real severe weather threat here, I think, is going to be going into sections of Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana here. Again, for our Thursday afternoon, having the highest chance of seeing those strong storms and thunderstorms. Also, if you hear any humming in the background, I have no idea what that is, so I'm sorry. It sounds like somebody just started up a lawnmower or something outside, so I do apologize. But anyway, back to the weather here. Again, on Thursday afternoon, going to have to watch that severe weather threat down here through Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and into Florida. again, as some of those storms kind of fire up. And something else we'll also have to watch here that the models have been hinting at is a little bit more of an isolated storm threat ahead of the main line. So maybe a little bit of an increased tornado threat Thursday afternoon here through Alabama and Florida Panhandle, not out of the question. But going into overnight Thursday and into kind of at the time the sun is setting here, again, more rain. It's just more of the same. Another shield of rain now developing on the northern side of this low pressure system up through Indiana, Illinois, and Iowa and Wisconsin. But to the south of there, again, watching some of these storms down here into North Carolina, Georgia, and into South Carolina. Definitely could become a little feisty. Some strong gusty winds there, not out of the question Thursday evening. And also very heavy rainfall rates, obviously going to be a big concern as those work on through. Now, by the time we're waking up Friday morning here, as far out as this model goes, we're really clearing out through much of the southeast as we get a little bit of a break, but don't get too excited because another storm is not far behind. Now to the north, we could see another impactful, some sort of wintry event here for our Friday. Again, you'll notice snow and ice once again breaking out into Ontario and into Vermont and New Hampshire here. Again, definitely not out of the question for our Friday afternoon as some of that cold air is still holding on. But to the south of there, still going to be an all-rain event for the major I-95 cities from Boston down through Hartford and into Providence, New York City, Trenton, Philadelphia, D.C., Baltimore. Again, all the big ones here. Still just going to be dealing with rain and not much in the way of wintry precipitation, at least with the next 48 hours. Now, after that, that could be a little bit different. We'll talk about here going into this weekend. All right, rainfall totals. Now, this is just over the next 48 hours. This is not including what extra rain we see this weekend, and you'll notice this is why we have such a flash flooding concern. Totals here getting more than 4 inches within just 2 days is more than enough to cause problems down here through Louisiana and Mississippi, and even east of there through Alabama, Georgia, the Western Carolinas could see a couple of inches of rain. That could cause flooding. Lesser totals up into the Ohio River Valley where the rain will be, definitely consistent, but more light in nature and won't be quite as, intense as we're going to see in some of these thunderstorms further off to the south. Now, flash flooding risk is also a concern here. Weather Prediction Center pointing that out for today. Again, we have a moderate risk of flash flooding through much of Louisiana. So as we've been talking about, have a way to get those watches and warnings, and that threat even extends northward and eastward into that yellow area and the green area on your map. And going into tomorrow, all of that continues, but shifts a little bit further east. A slight risk of flash flooding through much of North Georgia, there through Atlanta, into western South Carolina and North Carolina, down through Knoxville, Birmingham, Montgomery, Jackson, and Tupelo, even down into New Orleans, having the threat of some flash flooding tomorrow as well. All right, now picking up where we left off a little bit here. Again, this is going into Friday morning is where we were at, and this is our latest GFS model. You'll notice it looks a lot like what we just saw on our last map. We've got our storm system up here into the Midwest. This one continuing to potentially, again, bring some snow and ice into sections of southern Canada, maybe even into sections of Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. You'll notice here going into Friday afternoon. So this is definitely something we'll have to watch for more snowfall and ice accumulations in a lot of the same areas that are going to see it today. Now, the other big story I want you to look at on this map is what's happening back towards Texas. We've got another low pressure developing, and again, I think we'll be in a little bit of a lull here into the Ohio and Tennessee River Valley here on Friday afternoon, but that quickly changes going into overnight Friday and Saturday. You'll notice, again, snow still continuing here into Maine on Friday afternoon. Could bring a good couple of inches there out of that storm. But as we move this further ahead into time here, overnight Friday into Saturday, this low pressure continues to strengthen. And by the time we're all waking up Saturday morning, we've got, once again, another round of rain here into sections of Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, into the Paducah area, down through Memphis as well, seeing some rain here. And eventually going into our Saturday afternoon, we have a pretty interesting setup here. Now, we've got high pressure to the north trying to funnel in cold air, and we've got low pressure to the south. Another thing I need to mention here is, thanks to this low pressure being so far south and close enough to the Gulf, we've got very strong warm air advection here, as well as some changing of winds with height here over sections of Alabama and Georgia, and we could see severe weather Saturday afternoon once again. Again, today we're seeing severe weather, tomorrow we're going to see it, we'll probably see a little bit on Friday, and then Saturday another threat of it here, and I'll show you the Storm Prediction Center even already has an area outlined for that, and we'll look at that in just a second here. Now, going later on into Saturday afternoon, overnight Saturday into Sunday, this low pressure now slowly works northward into that marginal cold air, and some of our models hint at some snow breaking out here into Michigan, sections of northern Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois here. Rain still to the south of there, maybe even some thunderstorms again overnight Saturday, where we have that thunderstorm fuel. And eventually, getting into Sunday afternoon here, we've got low pressure off the coastline, and we've got some scattered light snow into the northeast through Boston, sections of Connecticut, Rhode Island, and we've also got some cold air trying to punch in on the backside here, bringing some northwest flow snow through North Carolina and Virginia, West Virginia here. And unfortunately for our friends in DC, Baltimore, it looks like just rain here going into our Sunday. But as the storm system slowly pulls away, that cold air slowly funnels in, we could get a quick burst of snow on the backside here for some of our I-95 cities, including Philadelphia, maybe Baltimore, maybe DC. We'll see what happens. And same story up through, sections of New York City into Hartford, Providence, Boston here. Again, as the storm system is slowly pulling away and that cold air is working in on the backside, could definitely see some scattered snow starting really Sunday and into next Monday. Now, as I also mentioned here, again, severe weather a concern on Saturday here. We've got the ingredients and Storm Prediction Center already highlighting from Birmingham to Atlanta down towards Montgomery, a small area, but an area that they have enough confidence that's likely to see some severe weather here. So, seeing this more than 3 days out is definitely concerning, and we'll watch the trends here, but could easily produce a bit of a wind and tornado threat once again on Saturday, much like we're seeing the days prior. All right, snowfall now through kind of next Tuesday or so, and I'll even bump this ahead a couple more clicks to get us into next Wednesday morning. Again, models picking up on some northwest flow snow here through sections of West Virginia here and even down into North Carolina. Now, I don't want you to focus too much on totals here, but just look at the general areas that have the best shot at seeing that snowfall. Again, the blend of models, all the models kind of put together indicate maybe, a highlighted area over West Virginia. Places like DC, Baltimore, again, not much showing up right now. We'll see the trends, though. It could definitely trend better for you folks. But somewhere that is likely to see some pretty good snow out of this is up into the northeast. And actually, let me go back one map. I forgot to mention, also over Indiana, Ohio, and down through the Detroit area. Could also see some snow out of this. Models picking up on that. Again, going into kind of our Saturday time frame. Now looking at the northeast, again, definitely, a bit of a highlighted area. Also, I'll mention, this is including everything that falls before the storm system, so up into Maine and into Vermont and New Hampshire. A lot of this snow likely to fall again with that next bout of snow here going into our Friday, but also the Sunday storm here could bring snow into sections of New York, northern Pennsylvania, and you'll even notice down here getting into Philadelphia, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, some snow showing up on the map. Not a lot, but again, it's definitely enough that we'll need to watch, and I think it's very possible that we could see some, snow out of the storm system going into early next weekend. Just too soon to really get into details, but as we get closer and we get closer towards that Sunday time frame, we'll be able to go a little more in depth for you all. All right, last thing I'm going to talk about today are temperatures, and again, this big warm-up on the way, and our blended models, again, high temperatures today, definitely indicating that we're going to get up there, especially in the southern tier of the country here, through coastal South Carolina, North Carolina, into Georgia, into southern Alabama, and into southern Mississippi, down into Florida. Very very warm temperatures, rather, on the way for a lot of folks, especially compared to what we were seeing a week or so ago. Now, if you're watching in Western Virginia or the Western Carolinas, still some cold air damming trying to hold on here, so temperatures still only getting really up into the 50s, but still an improvement from the highs in the 30s and 40s that we were looking at not too long ago. Now, as we get into our Thursday afternoon here, we once again get a little bit warmer. That cold air damming kind of slowly breaks down, and we've got temperatures getting into the 50s as far north as Baltimore, D.C., into West Virginia, into the Ohio River Valley. Again, this nice dome of warm air, and temperatures getting up into the 70s through the Carolinas and Georgia here, again, as very above average temperatures take over. That continues into our Friday afternoon. There we go, if I don't skip it. Again, very warm temperatures here for much of the country. A little bit cooler through the Ohio River Valley, but still above freezing for high temperatures, which, again, an improvement from what we were seeing here. And that trend continues into Saturday here. Again, warm temperatures. Now you'll notice going a little bit further ahead into time into next week here, we once again cool back down, I think, as another shot of cold air kind of funnels in behind that storm system we talked about. But it won't be super cold, just closer to average, I think. This is next Monday's high temperatures. Again, 50s in the south, 40s and 30s in the Ohio River Valley, and then probably a little bit colder than that up into the northeast, where we'll be impacted by that intrusion of cold air just a little bit more than some other areas. All right, well, again, a lot going on out there, from snow to ice to thunderstorms, severe thunderstorms, flooding, warm air, cold air, a little bit of everything, really, just kind of depending on where you're at. So hopefully you found some use in the video. If you did, again, definitely consider subscribing, like the video, and make sure to consider sharing it with somebody that you think might find the channel interesting. With that said, though, hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday out there, and I'll see you all tomorrow.